The Adventures of Henry and the Sailor, Part 8. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the endless stretch of ocean. The wind gently whispered through the sails, and the steady rhythm of the waves against the hull of the ship brought a sense of peace that only sailors like Captain Finn and his son Henry could understand. They were on their way home after what felt like a lifetime of adventures. The endless horizons, the wild landscapes, and the incredible people they had met. Every part of their journey had left a mark on them, shaping them in ways they hadn't yet fully realized. Henry leaned against the rail, watching the horizon, feeling the salt air on his face and the cool breeze in his hair. He looked up at his father, who stood tall at the helm, his eyes scanning the waters ahead. Despite the weariness of the journey, Captain Finn was as calm as ever, his face a study and focus. It was hard to imagine the stormy days, the wild creatures, the dangers they'd faced together. And yet, there they were, on their way home, each carrying memories of things they never thought possible. "Dad?" Henry said after a moment, breaking the silence that had fallen between them. Captain Finn turned his head slightly, offering a soft smile. "Aye, son." Henry hesitated, trying to find the right words. Do you think we'll ever have another adventure like that one?" The older man chuckled softly, the sound rich and warm. "Oh, lad, every journey is different. What we've seen, what we've done, it's all a part of us now. But there's always more out there, more to discover, more to learn." He paused for a moment, his gaze steady and far away, as though looking out to a distant place that only he could see. The sea's always full of mysteries. Henry watched him, impressed by the quiet wisdom his father exuded. For years, Captain Finn had been the one telling him the stories, the ones filled with danger and excitement, the ones that made Henry's heart race just to hear them. But now, as they sailed toward home, the stories seemed to have found a new meaning. They weren't just tales of faraway lands. They were pieces of his father's own life. Pieces of their lives, now. "What do you think we learned from all this?" Henry asked, his voice low and thoughtful. Captain Finn grinned, and for a moment, he looked like the young sailor Henry had always imagined him to be. "Well, lad, we learned plenty. We learned that the world's a big place, full of wonders and dangers. But we also learned that we're stronger than we think. Remember that time we crossed the volcano?" He raised an eyebrow at Henry, who nodded eagerly. "That was a close call," Henry agreed. He could still feel the heat of the sun burning his back, the relentless winds pushing them to the edge of their endurance. "But we made it. We did indeed." Captain Finn's voice softened with pride. "And it wasn't just about surviving. It was about working together. You and me, we're a good team." Henry's chest swelled with pride at the compliment. His father had always been a man of few words, especially when it came to expressing his emotions. But when he did speak, it always felt like a treasure. I think I understand now, Dad," Henry said after a beat. "I always thought you liked the adventures because of the treasure or the glory, like in the stories. But now I get it. It's about the journey itself, isn't it? The people we meet, the things we learn along the way." Captain Finn's expression softened, and he gave a slow nod. "Aye, lad. It's the journey that matters most. The treasure's nice, but it's the friendships, the lessons, and the memories we carry with us that make all the difference." Henry nodded, looking out over the water again. The sea stretched out before them, an endless canvas of possibility. He could almost hear the call of distant lands, the whisper of new adventures waiting just beyond the horizon. But for now, all he wanted was to be home, to feel the solid ground beneath his feet again, and to share everything he had learned with his friends. "I can't wait to tell the others about all of this," Henry said eagerly. "About the wild islands, the giant creatures, the lost cities. I'll have the best stories to share." His father laughed, the sound deep and hearty. I can already picture it. "I'm sure the other lads will be amazed by your stories. But remember, not everything is as it seems. Some of the tales you'll tell, they might be hard to believe." Henry grinned. "I don't care. I'll tell them anyway. It'll be like they were right there with us." Captain Finn turned his eyes toward the land in the distance. Henry followed his gaze and saw the familiar coastline beginning to take shape. There was the tall lighthouse, the curve of the bay, the cliffs rising sharply against the sky. It was home. "Look there, son," Captain Finn said, pointing toward the shore. "That's where we belong." Henry felt a lump form in his throat. He had always loved the sea, loved the endlessness of it, the way it made him feel small and infinite all at once. But seeing the familiar coastline, the place where he had grown up, filled him with a deep sense of belonging. This was where he had learned to sail, where he had first listened to his father's stories. This was the place that had always anchored him, even when the sea had called him to adventure. "I didn't realize how much I missed it," Henry admitted softly. "Aye, lad," Captain Finn said, his voice thick with emotion. "The sea calls us, but it's always good to come home, to remember where we started." They sailed closer, the shore now in clear view. As the ship neared the harbor, Henry could see the bustling activity of their small port town. The busy market stalls, the fishermen unloading their catch, the children playing near the docks. It all seemed so familiar, so comforting. And yet, it also seemed new. The boy who had left this place not so long ago was no longer the same. Henry had changed, and he could feel it deep inside. "Do you think they'll look at me differently?" Henry asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I mean, I've been away for so long, and I've done so many things. Will they still see me as the same old Henry?" Captain Finn's hand rested on his son's shoulder, the touch strong and reassuring. "You'll always be my son, lad. And that's the only thing that matters. You'll find your place here again. And as for the others, well, they'll see you for who you've become. And that's something to be proud of." The words settled in Henry's heart, and for the first time in days, he felt a deep sense of peace. The adventures, the friends, the wild places, all of them would always be a part of him. But home, with its familiar sights and sounds, was where he truly belonged. As the ship docked, the crew began to prepare to disembark. Henry jumped down to the dock first, his boots hitting the wood with a satisfying thud. He stood there for a moment, taking it all in, the laughter of the townspeople, the familiar smells of the market, the sight of his home. He could hear the voices of his friends calling to him from the nearby square, eager to hear his tales. "Henry, Henry, over here," one of them shouted. He turned and grinned, waving excitedly. They had no idea what was coming. "Wait until I tell you what I've seen," Henry muttered to himself, a thrill running through his veins. "You won't believe it." Captain Finn joined him on the dock, placing a hand on his shoulder once more. "You did good, son. I'm proud of you." Henry smiled, his heart full. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. He was ready. The adventures weren't over, not by a long shot. They had only just begun. And with that, Henry turned toward the square, ready to share the wildest stories they had ever heard.